Hello, and thank you for joining us today in this interview for the NAVS channel. The NAV channel stands for Narcissistic Abuse Victims and Survivors, and I created this channel to bring more awareness, education, and hopefully healing to all of you viewers out there. So thank you so much for joining us today. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Sophie. Hi, Sophie, and welcome.
Hi, Slavika. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being there. I really appreciate it. We were talking just a little bit before, and I said, it really means a lot to me to have all of you share your experiences and everything that happened. I believe the more we open up, the more we share, the more we talk about it, the more awareness we'll bring. There's a tremendous amount of people that still don't know what narcissistic abuse is, cannot even recognize the signs, don't even know that they're in a narcissistic abusive relationship. And so the more I think we share and we talk about our own experiences, the more it's going to light up, switch that light on a lot of people's heads. And hopefully we can also save lives, because as we know, abuse just tends to increase in degrees, and eventually it can really lead to some really disastrous things. So thank you again for being here, and tell us a little bit about you, your story, what happened in your life.
Okay, so I am a survivor of maternal narcissism. My father was an enabler. I don't think he was a narcissist per se, but he definitely enabled my mother. So I actually spent a lot of my childhood thinking I had an amazing childhood. But the older I grew, the more that feeling of that something was wrong, something was off. With the family dynamics grew more and more each year. And then my teenage years was really a nightmare. And then I ended up escaping in 2013. Late 2013, I went no contact.
Why would you say that it was a beautiful, like a seemingly perfect childhood?
I thought, because my parents always tried to give me the best education. I was Venezuelan, adopted by them. They were French. We moved to the United States. They tried their best to have me do the English schooling in public school and do the French curriculum, not by postal mail at the time. And they gave me tons of gifts and stuff like that. I never felt like I lacked for anything. But looking back, there were a lot of cracks and ugliness and behind the scenes that I didn't realize until I got older. Rages, constant rages, and isolating me from my classmates, for example, all that sort of stuff, throwing stuff at me. All those little things are that wasn't normal.
Yes, I know about the isolation. I also come from maternal abuse, and the same thing. It's the isolation that kind of, we look back and we're like, how come we had never any friends that came home or that we hung out with? Or so yes, that is one of the signs of narcissism, is that need to isolate the victim. So you're absolutely right. Now, I'm wondering, how was the dynamic? Because you say your dad was an enabler, and some people might not know those terms, might not know what that means. So what does that mean, having an enabler and having the abuser situation in a parental relationship?
To me, at least, the way I understand it is, the enabler is someone who sort of sees what's going on, right in front of their eyes, but they don't address the problem. They take the abuser's side, and usually often makes the victim feel bad or gaslights them on top of it, that sort of thing. Not so much as a child. Usually my father tended to stick up for me a little bit. She would get angry at me at home, and she'd call him and tell him I was being a horrible child. And he would sometimes yell at me on the phone, but sometimes he'd tell her, I think you're exaggerating. She's only 8 or 9. I can't imagine this is that big of a problem. Stop. Or sometimes she'd come home and, he'd come home and she'd find me, he would find me crying my eyes out because of the stuff she'd done and said to me. And he'd ask, what's going on? What's wrong? And I'd tell him. And he would listen and understand me. And he'd be like, I'm going to go talk to her. And he would. And usually afterwards, she would actually apologize, something which she never, ever did overwise. But she always apologized and told me, I know what you said to your dad. And she would make me feel bad for telling him what was going on. But I don't know, as I got older, I don't know if it's because he worked more and was often away, or she talked to him more. I don't know what happened, but he would take her side more and more. He'd be like, he'd tell me to shut up, to listen to her, to mind my own business, and to just, fuck off, basically, is what he would tell me. And he would see her screaming at me and throwing stuff at me and calling me all these names and et cetera, and he would always take her side. Never ever tried to defend me afterwards or whatever. So for me, that was enabling. Like, he saw what was going on and didn't do anything to stop it.
Did she belittle him, or did she because narcissists often put people one against the other in family relationships or any relationships to isolate even the members of the family. So do you think that did she belittle him in front of your eyes, or do you feel like she did that also, that you basically didn't like him anymore at some point? Or do you think he suffered? How did he suffer from the relationship, that narcissistic abusive relationship? Did he have any sequel from that as well?
I think he did. I know when I was pretty young, like from 8, 9, 10 and onwards, she was very unhappy that we'd moved to the United States, and she felt like she didn't have any friends, she didn't have a job anymore. She felt very isolated. And from very young, I remember her telling me, not to him, ironically, but to me, that she felt really resentful and bitter, and that she didn't like it, and he should be doing more in the house, and he should be doing this. Like, she was to say this long laundry list of stuff he should be doing, and that he wasn't. Some marriage stuff and stuff. I was so little, I just listened to her at the time. And I was like, maybe you should talk to him instead of me. You should tell him what you're thinking, that you're thinking these thoughts. And usually she wouldn't. Like, she'd choose something else to be mad about. And then he'd come home and she'd like either ignore him or blow up in his face. And then it would drag into an argument that lasted hours and hours and hours. They'd be in her bedroom, I'd be in mine, and I could hear them across the whole length of the house. And yeah, the older I got, the more I'm like, yeah, we didn't seem to respect each other, like each other's work. Like, we didn't seem to really get along, and we definitely didn't communicate. So I think he also suffered from that.
Yes, I experienced the same. I don't know if it's common, but I have the feeling that taking us as confidence, as mature adult confidence of an internal, it provokes some kind of twisted, almost incestuous kind of dynamic, where we become the second husband of the female narcissist, where they confide in us about the husband, so that we become partners with them against the husband, and we become that second husband. I don't know if it's clear for the people listening, but I had that really weird feeling when I was growing up, that I was my mom's, it wasn't like a best friend. It felt more like the plan B. If ever the husband is to be kicked out, I would be like tailored into that plan B, that I would stay with my mom
right
forever, just in case, and that she would be able to manipulate me into having me always around by isolating us and not having any friends, and eventually also, I don't know if it happened to you, but with me, she also played on my finances. Like, the more I was in financial crisis, the better it was in the situation, because then she could offer money to me and at the same time keep me under her control. So what happened? When did you really like have like this aha moment that this was kind of too much for you?
I think, well, there were two occasions. One, I was, I think, 16 or so, and I was homeschooled at the time, so I was pretty much all at home with her all the time, which was really difficult. And like I said, I had friends, but they weren't allowed to call to visit or whatever, so it was like not having friends, you know. And I got lonely, and I was like, well, I write a lot of stories and books and poems, and I wanted to share them somewhere. So I thought, well, why not the internet? So I went on fanfiction.net and created an account and a Facebook and an email account that were all mine. And I started contacting people, and we were sharing our stories and whatever. And like people do, we started talking about family and what we're doing and whatever. And I started asking people, like, is it normal that your parents say this and do this? And they were like, that is absolutely not normal. No, it's not normal. You should probably seek help or try something, like stay safe. Well, eventually my mom found out and it was really, really bad. I got cut off from everything, social media, everything, computer, phone access for 14 months.
Wow.
No access to anything. I got punished like crazy. I went to a therapist because she thought it was crazy. And it just went really downhill from there. Like she tried to make me believe I was trying to kill her. So my dad and my therapist that as well. Basically anything that I did wrong, like I got punished a magnitude for it. So already there I was like, yeah, this is really not normal. I had expected, I don't know what I had expected. I think I expected some kind of resolution or some kind of like being able to finally sit down honestly and talk to each other about what was going on. I think I even wrote a whole letter about like why I said what I said to my friends about her, because I wanted her to try to understand how I felt. And of course, like abusers tend to do, she was like, oh, you're crazy, you're exaggerating, you know, you can't take a joke, you can't do it all. It was all my fault. So already there I was like, okay, maybe when I'm 18 and stuff, I'm going to try and get away and like move away or something, but not be in the house all the time. And then a couple years after that, I went to college and did my studies, which was all under their control. I couldn't really study what I wanted to do, still couldn't have a friend I really wanted. And then I met my boyfriend. We started off as friends, and then it slowly became more romantic. I hadn't told her any of it because it was so slow and I didn't want to get in trouble, and he was older than me. But of course she found out because she always snooped for my stuff. I had no privacy at all. So she snooped for our messages and found out we were starting to kind of get romantic, and she completely lost her shit. So I got confined at home again, no access to any of my stuff again. And then it really went crazy. Like she tried to convince my professors that I was crazy and that's why I was staying at home, because I was being treated, et cetera, et cetera. And I was like, no, I'm not going through this again, not again. So I managed to, how did I manage to do it? Oh yeah, we had neighbors next door. For years, I'd been going over and confiding to when I could, when my parents were not at home. And they were like, we're here if you need anything at all. They were the sweetest, kindest people. They helped me out so much. So one day I snuck out to them and I was like, hey, this is what is going on. I don't have access to anything. Can I please make a call? They were like, of course. So I called my boyfriend and asked him to come get me. And I had nothing on me at that, just my clothing. All my stuff was in their bedroom. All my wallet, all my personal stuff was with them. And I called him, and my neighbors drove us to our meeting point, and that's the day I escaped. So that was, I was like, no, I'm not going to be stuck and trapped here again. I just can't. I might have killed people if that had been the case.
I know the feeling. So how old were you exactly when you finally escaped?
I was 19. It was a couple of days before my 20th birthday.
Wow, good for you. And so what happened? Did you cut all contact, or how did it happen that you managed to escape?
I basically was biding my time the whole last week leading up to my escape. Like I said, they kept me at home, locked all the doors, took all the keys away. I had I couldn't call anybody, email anybody, anything. And I was so depressed and scared, because I was scared shitless at that point. I didn't know what to do. And then I was like, well, I know there was an appointment or something on Saturday, and I was like, well, maybe I can manage to sneak out of the house physically somehow. So I propped open the window the night before and put the blinds over it so they wouldn't see it. And then the morning after, I used, like nail clippers to cut through the mesh screen. And I tried to pop it out and it wouldn't work. So I cut through it, just enough space to squeeze through, and I went out the window. And then I went to my neighbor's house. So also why I couldn't bring my stuff, it wouldn't have fit through the window.
That's incredible. And what happened next?
So I made the call, we met up with my boyfriend and whatever, and along the way, we got a call from the police, because my parents, of course, they went in my room and didn't find me there, so they called the police. But the police thought they were talking about a little child from the way they were talking and everything. They're like, wait, you're an adult? Okay, that changes things. And they're like, yeah, your parents say you're crazy, but they seem crazy, so what is going on? Are you safe? Are you okay? I'm like, yes, I left. This is what was happening, this and this and this. I do not want to be anywhere close to them. They're like, yeah, we highly suggest you do a restraining order, which I did. Restraining order just in case for school and whatever. And they said, yeah, just stay away from them, lead your life, you'll be fine. And I think afterwards I unfriended my mom from social media. I didn't block her because I still believe there might be a chance we could connect eventually. But a few months later, she blocked me. And then I started hearing from like mutual friends and stuff that she was saying horrible stuff about me, and they didn't consider me their child anymore, et cetera, et cetera. So I was like, yeah, well, I'm not.
That's a blessing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, fine, I'm not reaching out. So we've been no contact for 8 years-ish. There's no point.
Of course, there's no point. Now tell me, in your current life, because a question that comes up very often is, especially when we're abused since we're children, is now you are still with your boyfriend, or how did that go? Yes, great, congratulations.
Thank you.
So you might be, you might be a hopeful, like a shining light of hope out there, because the question that comes back very often is, now that, we lived, or the people that lived with a narcissistic parent or both, how do you cope with people around you on a daily basis? Do you feel like you attract more narcs, or are you more keen on discerning or knowing who to trust? Are you more trusting or not? Or how do you operate in your daily life since then?
I definitely have trust issues. I know it's not healthy, but it's so ingrained at this point. But I also kind of gives me an upper edge in the sense that I can sense bullshittery a mile away. Like I can come close to someone, not even have to talk to them for very long, and I'm like, oh yeah, I need to stay away from you. So in that sense, it's helpful. But yeah, for me, it's given me that sense of a stay away from people like that. Or my friends, I can tell my friends, like, this person is this in such way, like, this is my opinion, but I think you should stay away from them. They're toxic.
It's very good, and I'm glad that you're there. And how do you, I'd say, how did you heal from it, or what was your path? Because, I said in a very light manner, good for you, she's gone, but we both know that we're so indoctrinated, and of course it's still our mother, so it's very difficult to just cut right the emotional and inner ties. And you also mentioned at some point the loneliness, because we're isolated for so long from friends. And I was the same, like, kids couldn't really come, or when they came, she made such comments that they would never come again. Exactly. Or she would allow them once, but then she would talk my ears off about how bad they were, that, you want to puke, like you'd never want to bring them back, just not because you believe her, just because you don't want to have the 24/7, blasting in your ears about how horrible all your friends are. So the isolation is real, and then we become extremely lonely and dependent on that abuser. So my question is, so our relation, because it's incestuous, because it's so deeply rooted, because there's an ongoing brainwash. I know a lot of narcissists, they speak from the moment they wake up till the moment they go to sleep. So you're like all the time in that kind of vomiting of words. So how did you heal from it, or how did you get out of that deep connection, or I don't know how to call it?
With time and talking. It's funny because literally the day after I escaped and I went back to college, everyone was like, "You look different. Like you look glowy. Like you look happy." I'm like, "Wait, did I look happy before?" We're like, "Yes." So I was like, "Okay, I didn't know that." But a lot of them didn't realize what was going on. They're like, "Yeah, we had no idea. Everything seemed fine from the outside." I'm like, "Yeah, that's usually how it works." So talking to them about what happened, and sometimes some of them had gone through similar or less toxic but still toxic stuff, so that helped. And my husband was my rock, is my rock. He listens and he helps, and he helps me deal with my feelings about the whole situation. I had in college, for a while I had a therapist who was amazing, and she would listen and give me advice, but then she left. And she was replaced by a therapist who basically didn't believe a word I said, so I left,
Wow.
which was really difficult. Like, you of all people, I should be able to trust you, but if you're not going to be trustworthy, I'm leaving. But yeah, I guess working through time, and I write, like I said earlier, I write a lot. So being able to journal my feelings and what happened, and crafting stories and stuff about healing and getting through the abuse through my characters also helped a lot. So I wouldn't say I'm definitely not 100% healed. There's still, mainly at this point, it's feelings of anger and frustration, wishing to strike back at them for the stuff they've done to me. But it's also, I've come to a point where it's like, I don't regret my decision at all to go no contact. You know, I think what helped too is that, like I said earlier, we had mutual friends who would tell me this stuff, and we were like, your parents are really, really, really messed up. Like, we're sorry we ever believed them in the first place. We know who you are, how you are, like, we're really sorry, like, we're your friends, you know, that sort of thing. I'm like, okay, well, thank you. And I think the knowledge that eventually the truth comes out, not through me, but through their behavior, I think helped bring me peace too.
Yeah, knowing that justice was somehow done, correct? That you have justice somehow. Are they still together, your father? Do you know if they're both still in a relationship?
Yep.
Well, you know, and are your writings available if people want to read or get some of your writings or access or books? Or so what I'll do is I'll put a link under the video just in case, you know, people want to read what you're or access whatever you write.
Sure.
I think it, you know, it's always nice. Well, thank you so much. I have a last question is, if you had one advice to give to victims out there that might come across this video and have a mother that's a narcissist, what would you tell them?
Ooh. I think I would tell them, no matter what they say, because of course at home we're always like, you know, family business is family business. Never talk about it to anybody, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, that's for a weapon. It's like, you keep it out of shame or pride or whatever. You keep it to yourself. And then when the truth comes out, everybody's like, what? Because you didn't say anything. So my advice would be talk. You know, obviously not to the public, but to people you trust, other family members or neighbors who are kind. Like, I don't care, somebody that you trust about what's going on. Try to, if possible, not to stay isolated. Keep in contact somehow with the people you trust. And I guess it depends on how toxic it is, but I know at one point when I was in my teens, one of my friends gave me like a hotline number I could call to report what was going on, because it was mostly verbal, emotional, but sometimes it did get physical. And I considered for so long picking up that phone and calling that hotline. I was like, no, I can't do this to my parents. It would hurt them. all these justifications. And looking back, I'm like, they had no hesitation hurting me, lying to everybody and hitting me and all this stuff. Why should I be loyal to them? So that would also be my advice to victims out there. It's like, don't feel limited by your family loyalty, because they don't have any for you. So do what you've got to do to stay safe.
Thank you so much for saying that. That is precisely why I started this, because this summer I saw a post on Facebook about Gabby, the girl that got killed, that disappeared and then got killed. But the post was about the narcissistic abuse. And it was a message from God. For some reason, I came across this, and it really, it hit me so deeply. And it turned on really a light in me where I said, I've been hiding this all my life. I've never spoke about it ever, ever. I tried a couple of times to some of my friends. They didn't believe that that it's your mom, how dare you say wrong about your mom. So some of my friendships ended. They weren't real friends, but they stopped hanging around with me just because of that. So, and it was a real sense of guilt, shame, and being loyal to the family secret and to the family. And how dare I break the silence? It was really that, and it was so ingrained in me. When I saw that post, I thought, wait a minute, I might help save one life if I just break my own silence. And then also the other thing that I thought is, I've been hiding this all my life. Isn't it also blocking me from shining as much as I can shine in the world, just because I have this part of me that I'm locking in and trying to hide and trying to people not to know that there's this big, poop that I'm trying to cover up, right? And smelly, and it becomes smellier and smellier the more you hold on to it. So I really, that was such a huge impact in my life, just that one post. And then I dared to copy in its entirety the post and post it somewhere else and just write one line. That was my cracking up, my door open, was to say, and me too. It's all, me too.
Right.
And suddenly there was this downpour of comments of people who lived the same thing I did. And I thought, wow, I'm not alone. And suddenly I felt, oh, I'm not crazy. Oh my gosh, I'm not the only one. Oh, and I felt so much relief. And also, I was not dead. I thought if I broke the silence, something like this sword of Damocles would just
right.
A big brick would fall from the sky or something. Nothing happened. And it was like, oh my gosh, so it's okay. It's okay. I can heal and I can share and I can finally get rid of all that pus and all that shit that's I've been dragging along because I was too afraid to shame the people that actually should be shamed for what they did, taking on that shame and guilt on me, inside of me, and actually hurting myself from that silence. So I'm really happy that you're saying that to people, is to open up and talk and not feel like you owe anything to the abuser. You don't owe anything to your parents. They're the ones who owe us, right? They put us on this earth. They're the ones owing us. My mom often made me feel like I owed something to her all the time, like I owed her my life, like I was a piece of shit and I owed her everything. And it's the opposite. They owe us, right? So thank you so much for saying that to people. I think it's important that people open up and talk and share. and break the silence. I think the more we break the silence, the more awareness will be out there and the more people will heal. I think you're right. Healing comes from opening up, truly.
It's so much. It's a huge baggage of stuff, and sometimes it's just working through. And sometimes I know my husband has heard probably the same story like a dozen, 2 dozen times by now, but every time it's like you find something different, or you find something and it heals, it kind of brings the anger out or the sadness out, or depending on what it is. And finally you're like, oh, you know what? It's gone, it's done, and you feel better.
Yeah. And writing too. I remember I went on this journaling and writing. I went to do this forgiveness exercise where you kind of write everything that you feel someone has wronged you with or did to you and all the details. And I remember I went to the beach. It took me close to 4 days, like full days where I was writing. And I thought this list will never end. Like it's an endless, and it was only about her. Like I haven't even touched anybody else. It was just her. And it was like ongoing and ongoing. But the weirdest thing happened is at some point I wrote a sentence and it was like the booba, the booba gum shrimp, when he goes and tells all the different shrimps you can have. Yes. And it's like, there's no more. Well, there I was. I wrote the sentence and it's like, oh, I think that's it. I think I'm done. I feel so good because finally I got rid of it all. So I think writing and journaling, and you're a writer also, so you probably agree with that the writing also is a healing, can really help us heal and get rid of all that negativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much. If someone wants to reach out to you, if you're okay, I'll post at least the link to finding out more about your books and your writings, so that people at least can read what you're doing. And thank you. Thank you. You're an inspiration to a lot, and I hope a lot of people benefit from your story. To take that leap of faith and get out. I'm always saying to everyone, get out. As soon as you find out, get out. It never gets better. They never change. They never improve. They never feel sorry. I don't think they know what love is. So just get out. Don't expect that things will improve. They never do. Right? Yeah. So thank you so much. And thank you everybody for watching this. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, share the videos so that you can bring more awareness to more people. Join our Facebook group. We're growing pretty nicely. And I feel it's really a safe haven, the Facebook group, where everybody really gets to read other people's journeys and encourage one another, and everybody's kind of always, having everybody else's back, and we feel more sane in that group because we feel like we're part of a community of similar experiences, and that we're okay, that we are okay. So please do that. Yeah, we're survivors and thrivers. Yeah. So thank you again so much, Sophie, and bless you for this. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.